How is all? Monday morning, nasty all day today. Nasty, shitty winter vibey today. But I hope you're all keeping well. So today, they've gone into near full lockdown here in Ireland again. They're calling it level 4 plus. I knew they'd come up with some kind of sales pitch for it, and some kind of moniker, a fancy name, like all the bullshit with circuit breaker lockdown, cocooning, all these like bureaucratic phrases, that spin doctors come up with, and because politicians can't think of anything original themselves. But a big leaflet came in the post. It's amazing how they do it. It's been the same model they've used all the time. The Nefet, who are like the sort of like the task force behind the Rona here in Ireland, they make an announcement on Thursday and or Friday about they want a full lockdown, right? So they send everybody over the weekend into confunchals. The Sunday newspapers they sell loads of advertising space because all the cheese brains will be all running out to try and find out what's the latest, what's happening. Will I have a job on Monday? And then on the Monday, the government has a press release or a press announcement saying, well, we're not going to go as far as what we've been recommended. We'll give you a little bit of freedom. And even this morning, this not only did they do it, it's interesting how it's done over the weekend, like over the Sabbath. And it's always done right before they finish work on Fridays as well. And it's done as a religious thing because remember this is the new secular religion of the cheese brains, and it's replaced climate change. And the it's done like over the weekend, over the Sabbath, over the holy days, of all the Abrahamic. See, the whole thing is very Abrahamic, actually, how it's operating, and that's why it's so close to communism because communism is kind of like secularized Abrahamic religions, but the I mean, in the actual formal sense, like not the average person who has faith. I mean, in the actual systems, and. So Monday morning, the government has a little song and dance with the public and says, it's not as bad as it's going to be bad, but it's not going to be as bad as you think. And even this morning, it came with a big A5 leaflet that opened up, it's more like bullshit on this sort of like, it's like, here's what you can do and can't do under each level. But it's like, it's the classic, arbitrary unspecificness that they've, is such a word, arbitrary makey uppy unspecificness that they've been doing with this thing since the beginning, like the whole makey uppy as we go along kind of thing. Now, there was a quote by, there was some unbelievable stuff over the weekend. There was some fucker, another expert who, another one of these guru experts on Irish TV, who said we're looking at a at the moment, not like week months back. Now we're looking at a mass grave scenario, and the host of the TV show did not in any level challenge him. Like that's like literally when all the graphs say that it's flattened out and leveled, you still have these fuckers who follow the Neil Ferguson data modeling up, thing that we're still looking at the mass grave scenario. Now, there's a need behind this, which I'll explain in a few minutes. But the that thing, and then there was a doctor quoted in the Irish Examiner this morning saying, lamenting that the biggest problem was people in Ireland are not in terror of coronavirus anymore. See, they want the terror. The terror to them is power, but the terror to them is also control. Now we're winning, and talking of control, the Control 19 hashtag is blowing up. It's all over the place now. So well done for that. Keep it going. Anytime you share an article challenging the narrative, and very specifically a humorous or a comedy one, a good satirical mean, put the hashtag Control 19 on it. And I'll tell you why. We're not reaching, the average cheese brain can't be reached ever. This is they don't, because they don't understand humor or satire. This is why you have canned laughter on sitcoms. This is to tell them, oh, it's funny, I laugh now. That's what that's all about. Seriously, I'm not joking. That's why they can't laugh. That was to teach them how to. This is called a joke, and this is how you laugh. We know the NPCs. We know there's no internal world in most of them. Now, so that's a good thing. So keep the Control 19 hashtag going, and it's really kicking ass now, big time. Now, regarding this fear thing. Now, there's Christian Morris made a very good video. I'll put the link down below about comparing the movie The Mist to the Rona, which I spoke about last week, I think, and it's bang on. It's about, it's not so much that the mist is the Rona is the same thing, but it's the fears, the primal fears, and that's something I find very unique in Ireland. There's a certain type of Irishman whose life revolves around two things: the excellence of mediocrity. That's one thing. Obsessed with mediocrity, and mediocrity is the highest virtue attainable, and also primal fear. The same ones have a primal fear. Now, when I say a fear, I mean these people are like the kind of, oh, sweet Jesus, Mary, Joseph, save us, Jesus, Mary, Joseph, like that, right? And that's how they really are. And they come in all classes, all urban, rural, middle class, upper class, but they're predominantly in the middle classes. They're absolute cowards of the lowest order. You will never meet cowards like them. And what happens is they're we're not seeing these stories, but behind many Irish closed doors in Irish suburbia and Irish middle class, South Fork houses around the countryside, these huge ugly houses on an acre of land, there's a father who has is in terror, and they might have the wife involved in it, but if there's any sense, I hope, get out and have an affair. Don't be wasting your time with that. Find a real man. But he'll be the ones that have all protocols for how the family should have behave at home to fight the Rona, and he'll wear, he'll do the mask. He'll be like that fucker in the post office that challenged me a few weeks ago for not wearing a mask, and the school teacher mentality, and the you'll have the wife and the family especially regimented according to his primal fear, his terror, and they'll watch every news update, hang on to the word of the Dr. Tony Hula Hoop, the head of Nefit, like he's the new bishop, the new cardinal, to give him his advice, like his own parents got advice from the bishops and the cardinals back in the 70s, and that's I'll give you an example how to spot them. They're the ones who say the government shafted Neffet and Dr. Tony Houlihan. They shafted them. They threw them under the bus. They're the ones who defend that those types. They're the ones. Right? And at home, they have this primal terror that's almost impossible to comprehend. And if you watch the movie The Mist, there's one guy, he's an asshole in there, and he's like, he keeps switching sides until he ends up with Mrs. Carmody, the religious fanatic, and they start a religious cult, and we're seeing that now. This is very much a cult now, and they want human sacrifice. Now, the Branch Covidians, the cheese brains, have already reached that stage all over the world. They want human sacrifice now. And this is why we're being told about the super spreaders. The super spreaders are the new witches. These are the ones for the burning. And there's loads of stories in the media now of super spreaders. This guy infected 70 people. Yeah, but none of them died. Everyone has coronavirus at this stage practically. It's a tiny number are dying. And but it's like the witch, and that they'd be the types that be actively looking and making notes of the super spreaders in your neighborhood, and the witches, the evil ones, the heretics. See, these are the ones who have taken they've now taken the coronavirus to a secular religion, which it has been really from the start, because it was a migration from the climate change secular religion. The same kind of people that are obsessed with the climate change thing have migrated over to COVID-19. It's the same. Well, you see, the climate change thing, it gave them limited rituals in terms of things like separating their garbage, recyclables, cyclables, paper, plastic, straws, plastic drinking straws, the sign of the devil, this kind of thing. Now, that gave them a limited amount of religious ritual. But now the Rona thing with the washing of hands, the wearing of the mask, the distancing thing, this is and all the other garbage that they've come out now, the little pods that you sit in and all this stuff. This has given them supreme religion. This is now they've got everything they wanted. The full secular religious garb and rituals and ceremonies are now there for them to actually partake in. So it's made their dream come true. They now have their secular religion that is absolutely powerful. The only thing they're missing is which the climate change gave them, was a Saint Bernadette type character. The little girl which Greta Thunberg, the little girl who represents the the sanctity of the faith and the religion. And you get that in all this. So, like, they don't have a Saint Bernadette yet. But I wouldn't be surprised if some little girl who died of COVID-19 after she'd been infected by a super spreader will be held up maybe at some point as the kind of Saint Bernadette that they can worship as a god and go to visit her house and stuff like that. Where that's all coming too. You see, once you understand how one of these religions work, you see how that template. You see, like this, is people say to me when people say to me, and they are right to think, Thomas, what you're talking about is not real Christianity. Well, I understand. Then they say, well, the life of Jesus is what inspires me. Oh, you mean so just like being a good person inspires you? Well, so why do you need a religion? And this kind of thing. And it's the same thing. The same thing. They need all the same Abrahamic operating software memes and tropes in order to control them. And this primal fear is what drives the most religious aspects of it. So if you're a woman and your man is like going, "Oh Jesus, the road is going to kill us. Make sure don't," and all this, go have an affair. You can get pregnant by someone, a stud. Find just a stud, a real hard stud, and get pregnant by him. And teach this coward you're with a lesson. Teach him a lesson, because you as a woman, you don't want your daughters raised by a weak man, because if your husband has this primal fear of basically what's something that doesn't exist anymore, and a pandemic, I mean, and you know you don't want your daughters raised by that man, because she will grow up to associate all later manhood as weakness, and so she'll be attracted to one weak loser after the next, and will never have a happy, contented relationship in her life. You don't want your daughter to be raised by a man like that. And at the same time, too, you don't want your sons who need protection. Though your children, your sons and your daughters, need your man of your home to protect you, to make the family feel protected and secure. And going, "Oh, sweet Jesus Christ! Oh, praise the Lord! 10 feet! Oh, walk the fucking day! Wear the fucking mask! Oh, watch it!" That's not protection. That's terror. That's the primal fear. Okay. And you don't want that. You don't want that man. So if you're in a relationship now and that's how your husband is behaving about all this, I hope you're starting to get ready to make your exit plan to get you and the kids out of that relationship, because that's not the man to be raising your children. And if you're a teenager, young person who somehow stumbled across this film, this video, and this is how your parents are behaving, please understand that they're not how other parents are. These are not how many human beings are not like that. So don't think that you have to grow up to be in the same state of that primal fear that your parents are trying to put you through at the moment. This is a specific cultural thing that affects certain middle class values. And outside the world that you live in now, when you grow up, you will find there are many, many demographics of people, and they're not all like your parents who are screaming and terrified of the Rona. There's a big world out there, so don't let them narrow or demarcate your feelings growing up. As a young person, your job is to rebel, and this is one of the good things about the Rona thing, is because we will get rebellious young people who will blame their parents for destroying their childhood, and quite rightly they should too. I mean, I know there's parents who don't have a choice; they can't control the government, but they should be sitting there saying to their kids, "Look, kids, it wasn't always like this." And this is the government is not being good to us. I would do anything I could to help you have a proper teenage years, but the government are destroying everything for us. And remember, when you grow up, your job is to make everyone know what they did to you, and know the names of all the politicians, the media, political parties, and everyone who did, and the ones who fought for you. And here's someone called Ian Brown. He fought for us, and it's just like, I think it was Christian Morris said about the conscientious objectors in World War One. If you don't know what conscientious objectors were in World War One, there were people like us who figured out this fucking thing is just the whole thing by the royal families to cull the men, so there'll be no revolutions, no workers' revolutions against the royalty and the upper classes. So they're killing us all on the battlefields of Europe in their millions, and a few of them figured this out. And they became, for lots of reasons, conscientious objectors. So that wasn't enough. So you had the aristocrats, the daughters of the landed gentry used to go around. It's how feminism began, by the way. Used to go around England with white feathers. I'm not kidding you. and stick a white feather into the lapel of a man who wasn't on the front line fighting, to try and socially and culturally embarrass him to go off and run into a German machine gun. And these are the same people today with the mass and social in the Karens. I hate that term, the Karen. I wish there was a different word for it, but you know what I'm saying. It doesn't work that one for me. But a better word than that thing. The cheese bitch. The cheese bitch brain and cheese brain bitch, and that's what they were like, and that's what they and that's what at the time those women were saying. Aren't they wonderful? They're encouraging cowardly men to fight for king and country. In other words, like die in the mud, for some royalty who's related to the royalty you're fighting against. And now we look upon them. What sick bitches, what sick evil bitches, and that's how you'll be seen in years to come. You of the maintain social distancing, and this kind of thing. Oh, you who terrorized your children and stuff. That's how you'll be seen in years to come. And people like us will be seen as the ones who are the voice of reason. It's already like that. You know that. You know that in your hearts, that we're already the voice of reason. And this is what really terrifies you, because the primal fear has outweighed the primal fear is very much the groupthink type thing as well. If I can get enough primal fear around me, my primal fear will be validated. And it's so much of that goes on. So much of that goes on. And the white feathers thing. So the wear your mask is the new white feathers thing. And it doesn't matter in 5 years' time when this is all passed and they say, there really wasn't a pandemic and it wasn't needed. And it was all this stupid data modeling was really what caused this bullshit. They won't remember, because they don't even remember anything that happened last week. Remember, the cheese brain doesn't remember anything last week. And so it's no point going to them, look, I was right. You see, we're not doing this. So I'm not doing this and you're not doing this, so we can be proven right. We know we're right. We don't have to be proven right. That we can be proven right. We're doing it so in the hope that, in the effect that a generation of younger people will come along which will smash the appalling legacy my generation has left. I'm not a boomer. I'm just barely Generation X. But Generation X loves to talk about itself about I'm Generation X. We're cool. But they're the ones who are the biggest. They're the fucking Karens. What are you on about? What's this bullshit? You're the worst of them all. You're the ones who love climate change bollocks and all. I love the way this thing, Generation X is the coolest one. They're the ones who fucking land us in this shit. You ever see the movie The Breakfast Club? You are all Molly the Ringwalds. You are the Molly Ringwalds, all of you. You didn't become any of the others. You became Molly Ringwald. That's who you all became. And you didn't become the Judge Hirsch one. You became Molly Ringwald. So don't kid yourself that just because you're from Generation X means that you somehow grew up to be amazing. You fucking didn't. You're the fucking Neil Ferguson is Generation X. Fucking Boris Johnson is Generation X. Fucking the rest of them are all fucking Generation X. The worst fucking the fucking Doogie Howsers and all this that are running the thing. They're all Generation X. And the fuckers are running this country are Generation X. And who's the fucking one? Who's the fucking only giving us the only hope in this fucking planet is a boomer called Donald Trump. It's just unbelievable. And you sit there and go, I'm Generation X, we're the cool one, we saw through the bullshit with the mask on the fucking face, washing our hands, get out of that fucking bull. It's bollocks. It's bollocks. It's bollocks. Generation X will be the ones lining up to see fucking Greta Thunberg and dragging their kids along to see them. Don't give me this thing, I'm Generation X, I'm cool. You're in your hole. You're in your hole, cool. I was around, I was in that in the 80s, and I can remember distinctly being, standing, you've seen the pictures of me when I'm younger, dressed all in black, standing at Bayside train station in Queens in New York, and the train's going out to Long Island, stopping at the station, and with 1,000 passengers, all of them looking at me like this. Laughing, and they're all the ones who are going now, and same age and younger than me, all laughing at me, all these normies, and they're all the ones who are going today. I'm Generation X, so we see through everything. Fuck you, it's we're unbelievable, and that's who they were. You all grew up to be Molly Ringwald. None of you grew up to be Judge Hirsch, but whatever his name was, the guy was the tough guy, and yep. That's what you are. So don't give me this crap on we saw through things. The totalitarianism of what we're dealing with now is the Generation X totalitarianism. So yeah, cast off your illusions now, cupcake, that you're somehow special cynical generation when you're actually the most controlled of all of them. Now all you have to do is look at that film Heavy Metal Carlot, and you see those kids. They would have been boomers then, and they are the ones who've seen right through the sit. They were they would all called. They were the ones getting okay boomer then. And that you watch that film Heavy Metal Parking Lot, those kids are more fucking out there than any of you lot. And in terms of how they could think and freedom and all this stuff. And don't give me this vaccine damage. They were all vaccinated up the tits. I was vaccinated up the tits. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with an actual ability to think. And then certain people just shut off. A point comes in people's lives where there's always, the more I think about this, a point comes in people's lives where a threshold moment is revealed. And that threshold moment is revealed to you in certain ways. Like 9/11 was an enormous threshold moment. Enormous. Some people decided, I'm going to become a zombie. I can't deal with this. And other people said, this doesn't feel right. And the ones who went, this doesn't feel right, they stepped over the threshold. The same with the Rona thing. Maintain social distancing, wash yourselves 3 times every day, wear your mask, blah, blah, blah. And then the other ones go, it's not right, this. They've stepped over the threshold. And you'll find all kind of things happen in your life like this, where you've had a crisis in your family, or a crisis in a job, or a crisis in a lifestyle relationship, or a crisis of health. And there's a moment where you can actually bottle it and become the primal terror mediocre fuck. Or there's some of you would have went, there's something not right here. And when as soon as you realize there's something not right here, you've taken that control 19 moment and you've walked over and you've seen it from the other side. You become inverted like the hangman card in the tarot, and you're looking at things from the other way around. And you see things differently. And that's the thing. So many this primal fear and this cowardice, there are some who know it's not right, but they haven't got the guts to step over the threshold. They don't have the guts to do it. Not even internal. I'm not talking about going out and doing it publicly. I understand that. But I mean, there's lots of people who say to themselves, well, okay, they know it's bullshit, but they keep it to themselves. What they call the silent majority types. But even them, there's so few of them. This corona thing has shown that, you see, with 9/11, they saw the explosions. They saw the people jumping out of buildings. They saw it. It was a visual thing, right? And it was a bamboozle of phenomenal proportions, right? And regardless of what the story is, but the story behind 9/11 is completely irrelevant. And but it's enough to. It's enough. Even if it was the terrorist attack, just like they said, so many things were hidden behind it to push the agenda forward. Like, I sometimes wonder, whatever happened to the Medellin drug cartel? After Pablo Escobar was shot, those supply lines just don't vanish. And the next thing you know, you have the Clintons in spectacular wealth and everyone around them. And we see that even today with Biden and his son Hunter Biden acting like, in photographs, acting and looking like he should be in the Medellin drug cartel. Did the DNC become the Medellin drug cartel? Did it take it over? Is that how it got all its money? This is the kind of things, of course, that's probably could not be true or anything, but it's just one of these things that pop into your head. Whatever happened to the Medellin drug cartel? Those things just don't stop. And we know that the CIA and the Clintons are like that. And we know from Iran-Contra that the Clintons are spectacular drug dealers. The CIA are the greatest drug dealers to ever walk the earth. And they have the perfect storm. All kinds of things were hidden. All kinds of things were hidden in that. And the same thing with the COVID-19. Lots of things, lots of agendas are being hidden inside it. So that's the whole thing. It doesn't. People go about the minutiae, like, there wasn't this, that, nano. Forget all about nanotherapy. Forget the body is dead. Okay, it's what happens with it during the confusion, is what you worry about. Not. You see, this is why I never trusted any of these architects and engineers and fucking dustification and all this bunch. Examining every minutia of the buildings going down. Yeah, okay, something funny happened, okay? But that wasn't what you should concentrate. Why they had you obsessed with that. They were doing other shit. And the other shit is what you should have been obsessed with. And it's the same thing with the coronavirus. They have you upset. Even see the dumb truthers now are all doing that. They're all saying, "Oh, there's no such thing as a virus." Oh, fuck that. Coronavirus exists even if it doesn't exist. It exists as a phenomena. Look at what they're doing behind your back. This is what you should be really looking at. Okay, what you're really looking at, but you don't do that. But that's the whole thing, you know. It's like somebody shouts fire in a crowded building, and you're all running away, and that's when he fills his pockets full of like stuff he's stolen, and that's what's happening here and happened at 9/11, regardless of what the prevailing story behind it is, and and the primal terror, the primal fear. You see, the ones who were little kids who watched their parents like this watching 9/11, and Daddy couldn't save them. When Daddy should have switched off the television and said, "Listen, kids, let's not watch this right now," they all grew up to be the ones terrified of the Rona, because they were raised by the gods of fear, and they have like I said, the god of this earth right now was the coronavirus, and as the coronavirus started to lose its glamour and its charisma, the god of the earth now is the face mask. The face mask is the god of this planet. This is what they worship. They worship. That's why they want you all wearing them. That's why the ones you don't wear them, they go insane. They want you wearing a mask because if you don't, you're an unbeliever and a heretic. And see, it's the religious aspects of these things are always in there. Do you remember when 9/11 happened? The first thing they did was made a gigantic crucifix out of two molten bars. Remember that? There's always a religion. Even the communists have known you cannot pull this stuff off unless there's a religiosity about it. And I mean, I've seen religious. I grew up in Holy Catholic Ireland, and Holy Catholic Ireland was completely atheistic compared to the religion of COVID-19. This is like the Crusades in the Middle Ages. We're talking about that level of religious fanaticism and devotion, and what's this really about? Okay. In the movie The Mist, that experiment had happened because realities had split. And something had come in from another dimension because of a military experiment. Well, I think something like that is simply happening now. I was talking to somebody the other night, they had an interview, and they said there's all kinds of theories I've always knocked around that we'd move between parallel universes. And this is the biggest parallel universe split of them all. And the ones of us who have actually seen through it are already migrating into an alternate reality. Even in this reality, this parallel existence kind of thing. Now, even on a psychic or conscious level, a cognitive level, we've already said, I'm not going to live with these fuckers. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life like this. We've already made that decision. At that moment, we took that threshold moment to step over into a new reality. And I bet all of you who've done that would never go back. As much as you're frustrated by the bullshit that goes down and the things you have to deal with in your daily life with this COVID-19 religion, I bet you would never go back to being a normie. It's because in your heart you have a sense of freedom that you never had when you were a normie. As much as you're dealing with the bullshit and everything, now the biggest mistake people always make when these things happen, and you see that a lot of the 9/11 thing, is they become religious crusaders, and they try to evangelicals, and they try to convert everyone around them. Personally, the best thing to do is not to do that. Once you're, I've been saying from day one, once you're awake, that's enough. Once you're awake, that's enough. And leave the evangelicals to the communists and all the other things to openly convert people. You don't want people who've been converted, because people who've been converted don't believe. You see, being converted into something is not the same thing as belief. They have just assumed a new belief. Not the same thing as, should I say, they've just assumed a new package of ideas and concepts. That's all they've done. They've switched sides, you know. And this whole thing, you don't want people to switch sides. You want people who are innately aware to begin with. What you do want with regarding switching sides is to get people who have not been sucked up into it and fill them with the confidence to say, nope, nope, would not make a big song and dance. That's what I'm saying. Don't challenge the police. Don't challenge, don't attack people. You know, just be confident. this whole thing of glamour. Let your glamour and your charisma guide you through this. And this is why an important thing is humor. And that's why I said the most important thing to do with the Control 19 hashtag is to do the funny memes, because that's the greatest. That's the whole thing of catching more bees with honey than you do, with shit, and or catching flies, with honey than shit. It's the same thing. Let the shit let their shit catch the flies. Let our honey catch the bees, and that's the way I feel about it. And so a new week of new lockdowns begins in Ireland, but I can see it, the fear, that the only the ones who have a vested interest in primal terror, and believe me, there's a lot of them, they're the only ones who are in the state of primal terror over this. But a lot of that stuff that went, you see, a lot of thing that went on in April when they had the initial lockdown, that was bewilderment. That was like people finding themselves in new territory. They were bewildered more than anything else. But now that bewilderment has gone, and that's why we have to use the Control 19 thing to turn it from bewilderment into apathy. Take care. Love you all.